Here comes the best, the most well-rounded, best-smelling, nothing off-limits podcast in the world. Welcome to Quadcast with Kortney Olson.
We're back with another episode of Quadcast.
Quadcast.
Quadcast. Don't they make cameras that, like, turn? I'm sure these, you could set them up to they just turn to you when you start speaking.
Affy pop. I have no idea.
You know what, though? You'll be so obsessed, you'll Google it and then keep fucking around with it until you figure it out. It's one of the many things I love about you.
They look like they can, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
It's creepy. Like CCTV, you know? I'm not saying, whatever. Don't worry. I'm not getting off on another fucking tangent of conspiracy theories, I promise. Today we're talking about something relatively straightforward, and it's mental health. We are talking about 2021. It would have been October because it was right before my 40th birthday. Mm-hmm. And at this point, my gosh, it's what, 2023? So we're 6 years in to our company, 6.5.
Yep.
6.5. And we are super used to this level of stress at this point, right? Because every single month, if you didn't know, for those of you who are new and listening, Dave and I are everything built into one, but we run a global women's athletic apparel line. And we have grown this from the square root of fuck all to a global multi-million-dollar brand. And we keep thinking, oh, it's going to get easier. And then, in fact, it does not. But every single month we're put into a position of crisis mode. Like, literally, how are we going to pay for this? You okay?
Yeah, my ankle.
Your ankle? Packing up?
It's packed up.
It's already packed up. Past tense?
Packed up and fucked off. Yeah. Sorry. Forgot where I was.
Stop saying sorry. We're getting a sorry jar is what we're going to do. And no one's touching the sorry jar. We can keep touching the OnlyFans money and whatever other money, pension money.
Yeah.
Okay?
Not fucking touching the pension money either.
Keep dumping it into this business. But again, this is literally like growing a business in the apparel industry is almost impossible unless you have a lot of cash.
Yes,
truly.
When we started it, somebody said to us, it was like 3 months before we started, somebody said, oh, you need $1 million.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And this is a story of my fucking life. I was like, nah, fucking don't even do anything. We don't need $1 million. We'll do it for fucking $5,000. You don't need that. We'll find a way to do it. And it turns out 5 years on, I was like, maybe we could have used that $1 million. But we'd have been broke. We'd have been bust in 6 months. Can you imagine the scale of mistakes we'd have made with $1 million?
100%.
Fuck.
That's why, if you're struggling as an entrepreneur, understand that you are exactly where you're meant to be. And that's incredibly easy to say when you're on the other side and not going through the shit. But
the thing is you see, I'm not gonna name names, but so you see people who are doing so well, and
right.
I don't have any bone of jealousy for Meg. I think I've met her once. You've met her a couple of times. Lovely person, but you look at her life and you go, why is my life not like that? And that's, we were talking about this the other day. Instagram is there to set up as a way to allow us to compare ourselves. And you see all of these entrepreneurs, and you go, well, that looks easy. Was it easy for them? And the reality is it's not. Maybe Meg's doing it, I don't know, but 99.99% of people are struggling. And of course, we don't post. You do because you're truly authentic, and I don't because I haven't got Instagram. But, if you look at Grrrl, you wouldn't, if you just looked at the Grrrl feed, you'd never know how fucking hard it's been.
Not a clue.
Yeah, but it has been quite hard.
And people think that we have like a team of 20 or 30 people. Mm. There's less than 5 of us.
There is now,
yeah. We've gone from 12 at one point to, we've attempted to hire C-suite people. C-suites are executives that know the industry, and it turned out to not help us whatsoever and just set us backwards because they cost an exorbitant amount of cash. And is that a made-up word, or is that actually a word that I just used?
Exorbitant.
Yeah.
No, that's a word.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Extreme.
Yeah.
Excessive.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Moving on.
That's actually my role in our relationship is the dictionary.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
in
one
dictionary
of.
corner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
No.
Where were
Exorbitant.
we? Exorbitant. What was exorbitant? Perimenopause can suck it.
We had 12 we hired C-suite people.
Amen. Amen. Bringing it back to the big picture. It was COVID. We had an interesting year. We knew we wanted to expand outside of China, and at this point we had really only visited Vietnam, Indonesia, and that was it. So we were going to Turkey, and there's in Egypt. So we had a factory to visit in Egypt and one to visit in Turkey, because we have a rule that we won't do business unless we actually physically inspect the place ourselves, because we think that's incredibly important, and that everything is made of energy, period. So if there's bad energy in our manufacturing areas, then that's going to transcend into our clothing. So we have really great relationships with our suppliers, but we wanted to get out of China because I think Trump was still president at this point. No.
Well, there was a pandemic, so it was like getting shit from
You're right.
it. And Trump was president, I think.
When we started looking, because
Trump 2020.
tariffs,
Yeah.
taxes.
But they haven't been, even though he's not president anymore, they haven't been reduced.
Right.
There was taxes, and there was also like just constant disruption to the supply chain, either people in China being sick or more so kind of like people like DHL pulling
Right,
out
the
of
logistics
China.
were...
companies wouldn't send...
Logistics were ridiculous. Long story short, we went on a trip, and at the time I had just launched my app, which I thought was going to be a huge success. And, you know, it could have been, but again, we have our hands in, or had our hands in too many pots working on miscellaneous different revenue streams. On top of that, I am a big thinker, big picture person, and not detail oriented and systems person, which we can talk about the disc wheel, or Dave can, because he's way more fluent in that language than I am. But I am not a systems person. So whatever. The app wasn't a huge success at its launch. We were moving from our store to a warehouse. So we had spent the first part of 2020 renovating a store. It was gorgeous. And it was going to be an event space. We were warehousing out of the back. So running our e-commerce business. And then out the front, we had a space set up for events for women to come in and do self-defense or teach yoga. And it would be free as long as it was offered to the community. Otherwise, it would be a heavily discounted space for women to have networking events, photography studio, whatever you name it. And of course, a week before we were going to open, Sisolak shut down the city, and it stayed shut for a year. In saying that, we were moving from that building finally, because it had served its purpose, and we didn't know if life was going to go back to regular at this point or not. And so we were organizing moving out of the store, but we weren't actually doing it on that day. So the whole time we were out of the country, right? We met in Greece, because you were in Australia, right?
Mm-hmm.
We met in Greece and didn't have a pot to piss in. Like, didn't know how we were going to get from place to place, or how we were going to book our hotel for that night. We just knew we needed to get to Egypt, and we needed to get to Turkey. And so along the way, I'm wrestling dudes in hotel rooms. You're busting your ass, putting on different promotions. Like, it was super bad. Like, super bad. And what else happened? Oh, there's a whole story of Egypt in there where we literally got stuck. I mean, there's two stories in there.
Is there?
Yeah. Remember we had the first Uber driver pick us up because...
I was like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
It was so,
both of them.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Cairo's a trip.
Yeah, it is. truly. So
Depends what you want to talk about.
I know. Let's get to you. So maybe we'll talk about that in a future episode. But Tales of Egypt were incredible. We are we go to Turkey. You know, we almost aren't able to board actually going back to Greece. We were almost not able to board the flight to go to Egypt because Dave had his COVID paperwork as a PDF, whereas I had. And Americans, you know, we have the CVS, there's an app, right? So it's a QR code. And they were like, they're not going to accept that. And we were like, what else?
Australia didn't have the card at the time because nobody could leave.
Right.
I could only leave because I lived in America.
Can you believe that? Locking in the whole country.
Wasn't that bad. 2020 wasn't that bad of a year.
Well, you're smiling.
Yeah.
I think you're full of shit.
It's been said.
Yeah. Right? It's what the Surgeon General just say, that being isolated and lonely is the equivalent of having 15 cigarettes a day. Yeah. As far as the detriment to your health.
I wasn't isolated though, I was with you. Actually,
no, you were with me once.
To be fair, I think in 2020, it would have been 2020, I did 1 in 5 days in quarantine. So 20% of my whole year was in a hotel room on my own.
So ridiculous. So ridiculous. We'll save that for a future episode. At any rate.
But it probably played into what we're talking about. Like even to go from Queensland to South Australia, because I went with you to Melbourne and then changed planes in Melbourne. Because I was in Melbourne airport for 20 minutes. When I got to Adelaide, I had to do 2 weeks quarantine.
Oh my Christ.
If I had flown straight from Brisbane to Adelaide, no problem.
Did you find that out after the fact? I mean, not after the fact, but like once you landed?
Yeah.
You weren't expecting to do hotel quarantine?
No, so I didn't even leave the airport.
Oh my. Yo, can you believe that? 20 minutes in a... And now I was listening to a Joe Rogan. I don't listen to podcasts. I'm too ADD.
Shit on me.
Well, he had on the specialist who's like one of the most published doctors in the world. And, you know, he's talking about... they were talking about how Quercetin or whatever that drug is called, remdesivir. And the other one, you know, he swore on oath that 80% of the lives would have been saved had this other stuff been accessible. At any rate, he said... I mean, like I am entirely pro lockdowns and all of that. Like, sorry, that's the wrong way of saying it. I'm pro-vaccine. I think the decisions that people made at the time were largely trying to be in the best interests of people, but were those decisions right? Probably not. But I try to be balanced, you know. And remdesivir is just an absolute fucking shocker. Like if you see all the shit online, and people see a meme, and they think it's research. You know, it's like I saw that and I agree with it, so I'm going to repost it. There's some people that do that. Somebody posted something about remdesivir. I'm like, well, that's bullshit. So I went. I mean, obviously, I've got a background in stats and stuff through my Masters.
Learning. Yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but yeah, through the courses that I've taken and stuff. And I went to the actual research papers that had been done. And it doesn't fucking work. And there's no research to support remdesivir having a positive effect. I'm not fucking anti-vaxxer. I'm not like anti-masker. I'm not Trump. I'm a good socialist.
Yeah.
And I went to the papers because I thought, confirmation bias is a thing that, you know, happened a lot since 2020, where it's like, you just look for the shit that confirms what you already think. And that happens all the time. And so I went to the research thinking, I'll prove that this drug's... And I looked at it and it was like 3 trials. One of like, from memory, it was like one of 7 people. One of like 15. And those 2 were not structured properly. They were like, is 8 milligrams of remdesivir better than 6 milligrams of remdesivir? Not like, does it work or not? It's like, what's the right dosage? So there was no sort of like control of like no remdesivir. It was like 6 versus 8, and it's kind of like they're the same. So fucking those, and then the one decent sized sample was like 200 people, something like that. I mean, that's not really decent, but the one reasonable sample size said it didn't work. And from those 3 pieces of data, now it's the only drug that gets prescribed. For every single COVID patient through 2020, 2021 in America, you had to have this drug. And there's no data to say it works. And it's like, how the fuck did that happen other than money, right?
Exactly. And as you know, you might have gathered, Dave and I have incredibly different opinions on this stuff, because to me, I say, you know, Fauci was whatever. It's a long, twisted episode on our differences of belief, but we keep an open mind and we listen to each other and we're able to coexist. And
there's literally no fucking way to justify that other than somebody somewhere took some money.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the name of the other drug. It escapes me right now, that they basically made it like illegal in Australia. None of the doctors could access it.
Was it the horse one?
Yeah. Ivermectin?
Ivermectin.
It was ivermectin or the quercetin, or I can't remember which one that it was, but yeah, he said, and then like the labs, the manufacturing plants that were making it were mysteriously burnt down and super whatever. And I can't even remember what the point of me bringing this up was.
We were talking about COVID isolation,
right?
And then whenever,
but there was something about
you're like Pavlov's dogs when people say COVID. It's like, right.
Well,
and Fauci and another thing.
Well, look at everything we've lost.
What have we lost?
Yeah, I mean, our store, for one. People lost loved ones, all the small businesses.
2020 was the best year to be an e-commerce business. We just didn't realise it.
Yeah.
But still, revenue-wise, we did great.
It's the fact that, whatever, this is a whole nother episode. So, okay. Back to the story at hand. It was super stressful. We didn't know how we were getting from one place to another. We finally made it to Canada, stopped in London, stopped in France, right? So we're still managed to have like one amazing day and not completely stress out on money and running the business. And so then we get to Canada and we did a meetup with some girls, hung out.
I got to do some sound effects. Keep going.
Are you? Okay.
Hey, buddy.
And then I flew to New York, actually to Boston, to do a tour, and Dave flew back to America. But first of all, nearly missed his flight. Why are you looking at me so weird?
I lost the synchronicity, the sequence of events there. So flying back from Canada was not easy.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So fucking stressful.
Yeah, so I left, and then you stayed a couple of days in extra until your flight. Mm-hmm. And then when you went to go to the airport, they said you had issues going on with your visa. You were stuck with some people who had OnlyFans pages and weren't like able to leave the country. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah, that was kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't have a green card, and I don't know, because I'd applied for a green. It's all this shit that you hear is just kind of like, when you say it out loud, you just go, how can that possibly be the case? But because I had applied for a green card, and because I hadn't got some form before I left that I didn't know about, I couldn't come back into America. So although my wife is American and I'd applied and been accepted like 3/4 of the way through the process, because I'd been accepted, I couldn't get into America. Whereas if I'd just been a random English person, I could have just got a temporary visa and walked straight in. So it was kind of like, it was one of those, like, how do you figure that shit moment? Because it's like,
so stupid.
Yeah. So if I didn't have an American wife and I hadn't been sort of,
right.
I mean, I don't want to get into the fucking detail of it, but effectively what happened is that because of COVID, all of the, whichever got UCIS,
something like that,
USCIS, they cancelled all their appointments, and so I couldn't get the last one to get my card, and they fucked up a bunch of stuff, but I couldn't resolve it by going to an office because they're all closed.
Right.
So, yeah, they were like, no, you can't come in. But there was the dude in front of me who had some kind of OnlyFans account, and they were like, yeah, you're persona non grata.
You're a what?
Persona non grata, you're not somebody we want in the country.
Oh.
Because of your OnlyFans account.
They were trying to get into the country?
Yeah, he was a Canadian going to America, and because of his OnlyFans account, the Americans didn't want him. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck he was doing on his OnlyFans account, but he had to delete it to get let in.
Are you serious?
He was ahead of me in the queue. Yeah.
That's interesting. Just talking about the. Oh, wow.
I mean, I don't know what pops up when you scan your passport, but obviously quite a lot of stuff, because that would have just come on when he's gone to go through passport control. Because there's another room you don't know as a punter going through an airport. You don't realise there's this whole section for people who are in trouble. And it's like this closed room with no windows and just like, oh no, in this case it was like a bunch of people in blue, the law enforcement officers, and you're in there's no way in, no way out. You get escorted in, escorted out, but you just sit there until some fucker decides your fate. And this guy obviously scanned his passport, gets taken to the naughty room, and then he's only found, he was on some list somewhere, I guess. And they're like, yeah, no, you can't. We don't want people like you.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That was the single reason he went in the naughty room. I went in the naughty room because I had an American wife. I know.
So long story short, you made it to your seat like 3 minutes before the cabin door shut?
It was like, I was running down the Aero Bridge at -5, yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. So he barely gets on the flight, gets back to the country. Meanwhile, his wife is off wrestling dudes in a hotel room in a bikini to try and make ends meet. And so that's got to be playing on the back of your mind, right? Because when you and I met, I was like, I want to start talking to women. I don't want to be doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to be objectifying myself, even though today it's quite a bit different because I have purpose. I have a lot more emotional sobriety after being clean and sober for a decade plus, and at any rate, that would have still been on your mind. So during that week, we had absolutely no pot to piss in. You come back, you have barely make it back in. Your wife's gone. We're moving the store to the warehouse, which that in and on its own is something that'll push you off the edge. When we moved from Shipcom, which again is another episode, we moved from we call them shitstorm, and they're still in business, so hope you listen to this, Ted. Anyway, we were given, that's a whole nother episode. I won't go down that route. But long story short, moving our facility is a nightmare because we have so many SKUs. We have literally so many different sizes and pieces of inventory that it's absurd. So that in and on its own was enough to push you off the edge. You had a social media interview with somebody. You had an immigration appointment. We had a customer.
We also believed that we had secured an $18 million investment from an Australian company, because that was the reason that I was in the UK and then Greece and Egypt. I mean, we were looking at factories, but it was also sort of, I was contemplating moving back. We were contemplating moving back to Singapore at that point, just to be close to supply chain, to be close to the investor and a bunch of other things. But so I was kind of like no fixed abode, but I couldn't get back into Singapore because Singapore, even though I have a Singapore permanent resident card or a employment pass, sorry, not permanent resident, an employment pass to be able to get in and out, they actually closed the borders even to people who had the right to be there. So
right.
Yeah, if you were outside, you couldn't get in. So it was kind of like treading water. And
that's right.
So it was. So I was kind of no fixed abode because I was like, I don't live in Australia. I'm trying to move to Singapore. Trying to find a place to live in Singapore.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, and then it became ever clearer that deal I mean, that's another episode in itself, isn't it?
Right.
Wasn't real, or it certainly wasn't going to happen.
Right. That's soul destroying as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Soul destroying.
Yeah.
We've just gone through it twice in the last 12 months. 3 times. My bad.
3 times in 2 years. Basically every 6 or 7 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got back, you had your immigration appointment, moving the warehouse, social media interview. Your wife's off on the other side of the country, not a pot to piss in. And then we had a customer who started saying all sorts of slanderous, absurd shit online, like accusing me of being kicked out of Australia for being a pedophile, taking money and not paying our charity partners, taking people's... because I was slow on getting the app released. And there was like a week delay or something like that. So I take people's money and not deliver their product. I mean, just flipped. That was absurd. Calling you a womanizer.
Not a womanizer. Womanizer is somebody like...
Sorry, not a womanizer.
an abuser.
And this person had done this before, like 2 years prior. They were a devout...
Absolute mental
Yeah.
case. Like, you look at the emails they sent to our customer service, you know, we're talking about that schizophrenia, and yeah, it's just fucking mental.
Yeah.
But I know one of her personalities will currently be listening, so let's not name who she is, but you're a fucking cunt. Hi.
She actually
but yeah,
is.
the thing that like blew my mind. I mean, it was so fucking stressful because you're being accused of shit. I mean, like I sound really pathetic right now saying this, but with hindsight, it is actually a little bit pathetic. But I allowed myself to get so wound up by it because we were at that point spending a reasonable amount of money with Facebook on advertising.
Right.
And I'm talking to the people who are taking our money. I mean, Facebook is a shocking organisation. Like, every loss of revenue that they're having at the moment is thoroughly deserved because they're a shocking organisation. But the thing that blew my mind was you can say whatever the fuck you want about anybody and there's no safeguards for anybody. So the example was that Court had been kicked out of Australia for being a paedophile.
Ain't no fact checker box on that shit.
Well, Court never was kicked out. You're still a
permanent resident.
What's the card you got? Blue card.
Yes.
You have to go through police checks and background checks and all
to work
kinds
with
of shit
kids.
to get a blue card to work with kids. She works with kids. No accusation of anything ever, let alone being kicked out, being convicted or kicked out. But I would get myself into an absolute rage talking to our reps at Facebook and saying, like, you got to block this account because she's making shit up with no validation. And it's like, well, we can't be the judges of that. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't be the fucking judges of it? Because the irony of the situation was, because it was so... They were like, if you've got some proof that she didn't do it, that you didn't molest children and you didn't get kicked out of the country, they could do something. But I'm like, something is so demonstrably untrue and just a work of fiction that never happened. How do you prove that you didn't do it if nobody's ever accused you of it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like it was...
It's like, how do I get proof that something didn't happen that somebody just made up? Right. Say somebody said, I don't know, I fuck watermelons. I couldn't prove I didn't. I mean, there's no evidence to suggest that I've ever sexually assaulted a... Sorry, I shouldn't say that. That's... If we can edit that out, that'd be great. There's no evidence that I have fucked a watermelon, but there's also no evidence that I haven't. You know, it's kind of like... It's like Peter Pan and fucking Santa Claus, isn't it? Like, there's actually no evidence they don't exist, is there?
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that Santa Claus would not be able to time travel in the way that he doesn't give gifts. But it's like, to demonstrably prove that he does not exist, it would be quite difficult.
Right.
If, you know, you could prove that certain things haven't happened, but how would you prove that a mythical person didn't exist? I don't know.
So long of the short,
yeah.
Facebook gave 0 fucks.
Yeah.
And we're spending...
Less than.
I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year with them in advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this is our baby. We've worked so incredibly hard and have sacrificed a lot. And to get to this position and have somebody that mentally ill, full stop.
Who's admitted that they're mentally ill.
Right.
Who writes in from their multiple personalities to be able to... It's like if somebody said, you know, you wear animal fur, right? How would you prove that you don't? Like, do you have to get every single fucking photograph that's ever been taken of you and show, like, there's no evidence? There's plenty of evidence that you don't, but you can't prove that you don't because you might wear it in private.
Right.
You might wear it on a Thursday when you're not on social media. It's like that. Proving that something's not true, it's really difficult if you haven't ever been accused of it. Even now, it's making my mind hurt.
It's interesting because we haven't actually talked about this in terms of...
I'm not doing real well with the analogies, but it's like if somebody accuses you of something that you've never done in the court of public opinion, right? This is just on Facebook. Like if it went to a court, then you have to go through a process, and it's like establish why you think Kortney wears animal fur. Well, you can't because no fucking evidence gets thrown out. But as far as Facebook's concerned, if you can't demonstrably prove it to be untrue, and it's like am I explaining it? It's like
yeah, you are.
If somebody accused me of something I'd never done, I couldn't prove I hadn't done it.
Right.
Because I never did it. But there's no evidence.
It's just
anyway.
like
it's
living.
Fucking mental.
It's just like living like a woman. You know, you get raped, and then it's like, well, why were you out at a club drinking and not watching your drink? You know, it's like, well, shit, I didn't know that was how it worked.
Yeah.
And so there was that, which we then, after like the 238th email this person had sent customer service, we filed for a restraining order. Mm-hmm. And then the last straw that broke the camel's back, I believe, aside from no, there was two. One was there was a girl who I won't name either for her privacy. We'd been talking for a couple of years about meeting up, and I wanted to make her a brand ambassador, and I love her personality. It's hysterical. And we finally get to meet, and I, for whatever reason, thought she was a stoner because I would see some of her content on social media, and I'd be like, she looks baked. But I think she would drink. You know, she might have a cocktail at night or whatever. And so I was leaving Boston, coming to New York. We were planning to have lunch. And I said, hey, one of my clients owns a dispensary and gave me a bunch of shit. I'll bring this to you. I ended up giving, it was a blunt, a pre-rolled blunt, and I ended up giving it to somebody that I had a session with. It was ball busting. I kicked the shit out of his balls, and I'm like, here, go ahead and take this. You're probably going to need this tomorrow. And he was like super grateful. And I texted her and I said, hey, I gave the pre-roll away, but I have a Willy Wonka bar for you. And she said, oh, they probably needed it more than me anyways. Haha. And then, cool, sounds good. So to me, I interpret that as you know what a pre-roll is and you know what a Willy Wonka bar is, which I don't know if I would have known or not in hindsight because I haven't been in that many dispensaries. I'm from Northern California. And for those of you that don't know, that's like that's the Amsterdam of North America. But, you know, if you're not a stoner, or if I would have thought she would have said, oh, I don't smoke, or, oh, what's a pre-roll? Not that other person needed it more than me, haha. So I take the Willy Wonka wrapper off the chocolate. I fly to New York, and I take it off because it's like THC, blah, 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 right? I'm like, cool, don't want my luggage to get run through, and you know what I'm saying? So I took the wrapper off. And
given your brother's experience, should you be saying that?
Oh, I don't know. There's a whole nother story.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure we can like bleep out a few bits.
I mean, whatever. You
Yeah.
know, I would rather be. I'll go sit in prison right now if you want to put me in there. Like, fuck it. I got plenty of people.
Free
I can.
healthcare.
Yeah, free healthcare, free food. You know, I can 12-step people. I can actually run some meetings inside of the facility. Like, let's go. So, anyways, I fly down, and we meet for lunch, and it's great energy. I hand her the bar of chocolate, and I said, be careful with this. I don't know how much THC is in it. She said, okay, cool. I go, what do you want? And she tells me what she wants. We were at a Buddha bowl type place. I said, what do you want? She tells me. I said, great, I'll be right back. I'm in line for maybe 5 minutes because you got to get quinoa and sweet potato and all the shit put into the bowl. The tahini sauce. I get it. I go sit down. From the time that I had left her to the time that I came back, well, she ate something. We're about 45 minutes into the conversation. Things are going great. I had just gone to the Site K retreat. So I'm talking about Site K and subconscious programming. And then I'm talking about the customer who we just had to file the restraining order against. And, you know, subconscious beliefs and, you know. And so all of a sudden she looks at me and she's like, do you feel weird? And I was like, no. She's like, I feel really strange. And I was like, well, shit, maybe it's food poisoning or something. Literally did not cross my mind for a split second that she maybe, potentially, could have eaten some of that chocolate. Didn't even cross my mind. So then she's like, all of a sudden, I gotta go. I'm gonna get a cab to my place, but I'm gonna call an Uber. But I'm gonna go over and sit there. And I was like, oh, okay. I hope you feel better. Like, shit, you know, well, bummed out. Like, all right. And I get up and I said, look at the employees. And I was like, oh, okay. I get halfway back to my hotel. I'm walking. I'm in Manhattan. And I'm like, I hope she's all right. That was really strange. I call the place. I'm like, is my friend still there? And they were like, yeah, she's here. She's fine. She's with us now. And I was like, okay. Have a good day. So much is going on in our personal life that's as far as that went, right? And then, of course, I get back to the hotel, and about 20 minutes after that, I get a phone call, and it's her, and she's in the back of an ambulance. She ate half that chocolate bar. And I said, are you kidding me? I told you I didn't know how much THC was in there. And she says, I thought you said something about it being dark chocolate, not milk chocolate. Because she was baked as fuck. All my friends we eat dark chocolate. I'm sorry. I know it wasn't intentional. And I'm just thinking, oh my Jesus wept. You have got to be kidding me. What is going to come of this? You know, I knew she'd be fine because it was just weed, right? But at the same time, I was like, this is not good. You know, this is like some codependent shit next level. So there was that. And I, you know, of course, I'm sobbing. I'm like, I'm paying for the ambulance, paying for anything out of pocket. That was a couple $1,000s. And then you had, of course, your ex say that there was a bill that wasn't paid or something. And that your daughter was upset, and that was the linchpin for you.
There was a bunch of other things. Like because I was also organising a surprise birthday.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And
I was turning 40, and Dave was planning a surprise birthday party for me at the what was it called?
The Invisible House.
The Invisible House out in Palm Springs.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we have a dear friend of ours who was going to be doing the AV, and it sounds like such a little thing, but Jason, he's a great fella, love him dearly, but he likes a chat. So, like, what I thought was a sort of fairly straightforward thing of he'd be able to figure out what he needed and all that. All of a sudden, I needed to source get sound systems and decks and amps and we would be talking like 2 hours a day for a week, and it was like we're trying to move, we had no money. I had, you know, I mean, I was sort of trying to tell it in a way that's constructive, I suppose, rather than just what happened. But when big companies have debts, they have a lot of people to put on that debt and kind of not harass you, but like I was getting 𝗪𝗥𝗢𝗪𝗥𝗧. I was getting like 5 calls a day from there. I mean, we're like fucking barely
in the red.
Yeah. And they'd be calling 5 times a day. I'd get threatening emails from them saying, if you don't resolve this by this point, and what money we did have, we had to give to your friend, who you rang me and said, we've got to pay for the ambulance and the hotel stay and stuff. And I've got the debt collectors, and I've got more than one of those, I suppose. And yeah, I could just feel all this stuff mounting up, and I don't know whether people are more equipped than this or not, but than me or not to deal with that kind of stuff. But I know that I was taking too much on, because I do a lot for the company. That I guess I'm quite blessed in a sense that I've got quite rounded skills, so I can do lots of different things.
And you teach yourself how to do everything, which is insane. Like, you actually produce commercial quality videos.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when people look at us from afar, they think, wow, this is a really big brand.
Oh yeah, we're doing shit for $250 that when I was in the corporate world, we'd be spending 150, 200 grand on.
Did you hear that? Can you please repeat that? Get a little closer to your mic and say that once again. This is why when you can't get upset with people who are socialists, like, tax the rich.
So yeah, I mean, we'll do an ad. We'll film it for absolute bare minimum, and then I'll do the editing. I'll pick the music. I'll get the voiceover. I'll do all of that stuff, and we spend $250 on stuff that I would have previously spent 150 grand on.
That is insane.
We found a way, and we were talking about this the other week in our podcast about. It was literally like 45 minutes ago, about how you find a way to do something.
Right.
But, so, I'm kind of at that point working with the product team. I'm doing the marketing. I'm doing the finances. Being chased by debt collectors. I'm trying to find fucking...
citizenship.
Oh, yeah, I'm not allowed to be in the country. I'm trying to get my green card sorted out. I'm trying to organise debt and amps.
We've got this customer emailing 236 times.
And you know what? That really did. I mean, I don't give a fuck that she's listening, and that she might get some fucking pride from what she did, but
she's evil.
Well, it's the one that really hurt me was that we hadn't honoured the donations.
Right.
That we'd run promotions, earn money for charity, and not paid it, because we've done what we've done with Grrrl to try and make the world a better place. Like, consistently tried to do the right thing for 8 years, and to be, kind of...
Not kind of.
Well, no, I only say kind of because she's got fuck all of an audience, but for
right.
that shit to be put out there, and for even one person to believe... Like,
yeah,
I remember...
she did have a few people on side, maybe like 2 or 3. And
there's a bunch of people who've been disaffected for various reasons, but there's no reason. We're just a fucking clothing company.
Right.
Run by 2 people that are just trying to put some positive out into the world.
Right.
And then that comment about not paying the stuff, because it's like, what people don't see sometimes is, that, I mean, there were 2 elements to that. One was break the silence against domestic violence. And the comment was, I've spoken to somebody there and they've got no record that Grrrl made a donation. I put it on my credit card because it wasn't, we didn't have the money, so it was I made that donation myself as a person.
Right.
And because we only sold, like, it was those fucking stupid shirts that this person had inspired us to make, and we sold like 17 or some shit, and we give the profit away from selling 17 shirts
for a shirt that's already $20 underpriced.
Well, I mean, that's one thing, but like we had to make 200 because of the minimum order quantities. So the
This
cost
shit hung around like a bad rash.
the
too.
cost of making those 200 was way more than the revenue we pulled in off our discounted 17 that we fucking sold on the day. And then I still said, well, if we had sold all 200, right, at full price, and this is, I've got the receipts and I'm fucking happy to show it to anybody. I didn't say, well, we 200 times, I'm not going to tell you how much they cost to make, but it's like, let's say, round numbers, it cost us $2,000 to make the shirts. We sold 17 at $20 each, so we made $300 in revenue. So we're negative $1,700 on that. Sorry, negative $1,300 on that. No, I said, well, if we'd sold all 200 at full price, we'd have made, I can't even remember the exact number now, but like, let's say $700 profit. I paid that money on my personal credit card because we needed to do it, because we said we would do it. And I couldn't.
That's interesting. I don't know that I remember hearing that as well.
I probably didn't bore you with it.
You probably didn't share that with me. Yeah.
But it was sort of like that deeply bothered me because, you know, probably my biggest failing is that I take everything way too personally. And I was just kind of at that point saying, you know, we've been in this for 6 years at that point. Yeah, 6 years.
And a half.
And I put my life and soul into it, you know, like.
Literally.
I mean, I don't want to overplay it, but I'm just trying to explain how I felt at the time. Is like I hadn't had a day off in 6 years. And you're working sort of 14 hours a day, and then any old fucking cunt can just say, hey, you didn't do that. It's like, well, I did.
Yeah.
And I did it myself. I did it on my own personal car. I put myself into more debt.
Right.
And then all of these things happening at the same time with, you know, the incident in New York. I've got debt collectors calling everywhere.
Moving the warehouse.
Having to organise moving the warehouse.
Or not moving out of the store. Like that.
That on its own.
That's PTSD by itself.
And then.
Fuck.
So basically what I did, or what I didn't do, I suppose, is deal with any of that. I just stored it, you know. And you talk about how stress gets stored at a cellular level. I just, you know, my way of coping with shit, which is not really coping, is just kind of, oh well, never mind. Let's focus on the next thing. What's the next most positive thing that we can be doing to get ourselves into a better position? Not worrying about what's happened in the past, but all I'm doing is storing that, and it's just kind of like reaching that full point. And I actually, do you know, I don't think it was anything significant that actually, you mentioned what my ex said. That was about, you know, 3/4 full. I think the thing that tipped me over was actually not. It was I think it was it was either the debt collector or it was the problem we were having with, who does our security here, the alarm company?
ADT. Dyslexic.
Yeah. We had an issue with like transferring the bill over, and they were trying to tell us that we owed them $1,000 because somebody was moving into the store that had to pay some setup fees, but those fees had been apportioned to our account. So it was kind of like the skate shop that was moving in needed to pay some connection fees, but they put that on our account there and said we can't move in here until that's sorted. And I'm like, we don't have the fucking money. And
then, of course, keep in mind, y'all, if you don't have security, you can't get insured. Yeah. So there's so many intricacies. It's not like, oh, well, you just couldn't pay that. It's like, no, well, if we can't pay that, then all of our assets that are sitting in our warehouse are now non-insurable.
Yeah. And the thing you mentioned before was my ex sent me an email and said that my daughter had come home visibly upset because she had a letter from school and she knew what was in it, and it was basically that I hadn't paid the fees that needed to be paid, and it's like she's, you know, so upset and she's so embarrassed that she's the only kid that hasn't had her fees paid.
Ugh, what a absolute bitch.
And look, I've done my best at not talking negatively.
And literally, Dave has not. Even me saying that out loud is almost disrespectful, but it's difficult for me to keep it inside because I've watched this man absolutely break down. I've never seen a grown man sob as when our first year of our marriage, because there's more of a backstory. Dave's ex was jealous of me coming along. Here's a younger girl. He married me after a short period of time. She wanted to get married. He did not. And she thought for some reason we were together.
I think that, you know, and I'm not trying to be over generous, but
You are.
no, I'm not. So I think you know the fact that we met and got married so quickly was probably quite hurtful for her.
Understand. I get it.
But
To take your child away, where I was getting at is she planted seeds in his son's head, and all of a sudden he didn't want to be around him when they were best mates, and he was only 8 years old. And because of me, I came along into the picture, and then he went from having his kids every other weekend for the full weekend to not seeing them at all. His son in particular, for 12 years, basically, the entire time we've been married. They just reunited the day after Christmas via email. He reached out, and that was incredible. It was a Christmas miracle. Go Jesus. And that was amazing. But in the early days, you know, I was like, oh, God, what did I get myself into? Because it was so disruptive to your mental health. Shell of a man.
Sobbing in the shower. What the fuck is it? I can see his cock.
Oh my gosh, you're so funny.
But yeah, it was
traumatizing, and I don't have children, so I can't. That's like putting it lightly. Like
See, the thing is that I saw Sky every 2 weeks. I'd say 10 years, and maybe there's the odd weekend here and there that I didn't. But when I was working in Malaysia, I'd leave work 5 o'clock on a Friday night, go to the shitty KLCC low-cost terminal that's swimming in piss.
Ew.
It was fucking horrible. It was always my joke that I offended all my Malaysian friends with, which is, you know, I'm not surprised you blokes can't find MH370 because you can't find a urinal from 2 feet. But yeah, I'd go to the airport, fly overnight on AirAsia. Luxury, I've flown AirAsia. I'd get there on a Saturday morning, see her for the afternoon, and then fly back Sunday to go to work Monday. Like, so, I mean, I'm not trying to make myself into a hero. Well, maybe I am a little bit, but
you absolutely.
You know, it's like I saw her every 2 weeks, and the thought that I had let her down. I don't know, it sounds fucking stupid, but when you pile all this stuff up and you don't deal with anything, it was like, and then
it's also you're a man.
Is it?
Yes.
Anyway.
You're conditioned to just deal with it, to suck it up, to not discuss it, to not process it.
Well, it's kind of also like, I didn't know who to talk to because, like, I've tried, I mean, less so recently, but I've tried to keep the money stuff to myself because I don't want to stress you out.
Right.
And the party was a secret. And, you know, I'm just kind of just trying to do the best I can to get through, you know. And I, you know, the kids stuff, not many people really get that. And I don't really have I don't think anybody would understand still the pressure and the stress of having a small business through 2020, 2021. I mean, like, we're literally, I remember when we landed in Melbourne to do our first quarantine, it was like, what happens if people don't ever go to the gym again?
Right.
It's over. You know, it's over.
Like, what?
By the time we realised that it wasn't, it was actually going quite well. It was too fucking late to make the most of it. But anyway, yeah. So it was a really fucking bad day, and I was at the gym, just leaving when I read the email from my ex, and then you called with the news about Willy Wonka, and then I had like 3 calls from Clearbank, and then I had 2 emails from them, and it's like, if you don't rectify this by tomorrow, we're going to take you to court. And then something else fucked up with the move, and I was just, I just wanted it to stop.
You had to like get the U-Haul that day, and it was just pure chaos. And so I could tell something was up because I was 3 hours ahead of you, and you always reply immediately. And, you know, I know we had one episode in Thailand where you kind of lost your mind for a minute, and we can talk about that in our experience with gear and how that ties into a bigger landscape of what's going on with the world in terms of hormones and all that kind of stuff on a different episode. But this was the first time, you know, that I knew like something was terribly wrong, and you weren't replying. I called, and then you were forwarding my calls, which you never do. And then you were saying things like, you know, I'm sorry, I just need the noise to be quiet. And I truly didn't want to let you down, you know. But I could just tell the way that you were talking or messaging that something was wrong. And so I acted on that, and then got people over to the condo, and they were like, the bathroom door is shut. He said he's just taking a bath. Like, I think he's just relaxing. And I remember telling Brian, I was like, Brian's Redbeard, by the way. I was like, you need to break the fucking door open, you know? And again, nothing happened. And then the person that you were supposed to have the social media interview with, I called and said, listen, Dave's not going to make the interview. He's having a mental health crisis. I'm really sorry. I'm in New York. I don't know what to do. And she actually lived down the street. So she's like, do you want me to go down and intervene? Because she'd had a lot of training with the other organizations that she'd worked with and so forth. And then she went down because Brian needed to go and get the U-Haul. And, I remember her saying, you know, he's talking to me through the door. And I said, okay, well, I don't know what else to do. I really appreciate you trying. I'm sure everything will be fine. And then as soon as she left, you had messaged me and said that, you know, I'm sorry, I've had enough. I can't do this any longer. And so then I called her back or messaged her, and she's like, you need to call 911 immediately. I was like, fuck. I'm like literally sitting on some dude's lap in a bikini, sobbing. Like, I'm terribly sorry.
Yeah, you were right. You were right. That did play into it. It's not, you know, I'm not saying that was the reason, but it was
you had
the feeling,
so much.
It was the feeling that we were back at square one.
Right.
You know, we're back
I'm
where
doing
we met.
Where we,
And we just put in 6 years, and it's like, fucking what?
Right.
You know, and that's a recurring thought that I have. Like, what's the point? You know.
Right.
You got no reason to expect people to shop with you, and you know, shopping is fashion, whatever. But it's like, I'm not sure that anybody genuinely understands that we did do this to try and change the world.
Right.
Not to sell fucking t-shirts or leggings, because there's thousands of companies doing that.
Right. And I hate clothes, so there's that.
Yeah. And it was just you get this constant, like, reminder that most people don't appreciate that, and they've got no need to. Like, nobody owes us a living, nobody owes us understanding or any of that. You know, I'm not expecting people to write in going, God, it's amazing what, even though so many people do.
Right.
We've got no right to
It's
expect
so easy
that.
to focus on the one negative thing.
Well,
or the several negative things.
Yeah, but it all adds up, you know, and
Right.
that was kind of what happened for me. It was, you know, the sum of the parts kind of thing, and a big part of that day was, for what are we doing this for? We've got no fucking money. We're not getting where we need to get to. We can't reach the people that we want to reach, and I felt like I'd failed.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wanted the noise to stop.
Yeah.
That was all I could. All I wanted was just quiet. I just wanted people to stop. You wouldn't even let me fucking kill myself in peace. You know what I mean? Like, it is people. It's Brian on the door. It's, you know. I just wanted to slide away. You know, I just wanted the noise to stop because I couldn't figure it out. And I think I'd always been able to figure stuff out. Like, and people told me I was good at figuring stuff out. And it's like, I felt like I couldn't, like, work out how to deal with it. And I couldn't, there was so much fucking noise and so much shit happening at the same time that I actually couldn't put it to one side anymore. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the only way that I could see that I could deal with it is to stop dealing with it.
It's pretty wild.
And I think, you know, there's a few things that I take out of that. There's a few things that I take out of that which I don't know if they're helpful to anybody else or not, but is so easy to say, but is finding, it's like sharing along the way. Do you know what I mean? You know, there's times where you say to me, oh, you know, I can help you with that. And I'm like, oh, it's going to take me longer to explain how to do it than it is to actually do it. So I'll just do it. But the reality is what I mean by sharing along the way is like, if you share bit by bit, then people have got the background, people have got the story. So when I say to you, like, I don't know that anybody would understand what it's like running a small business. If one of my friends, if I'd shared the story along the way, bit by bit, they'd get a kind of idea over time that is stressful and there's no money, and how, like, I, try to explain to people that the more successful we are, the more cash we need. And people don't understand that. But if you share your story along the way, you got, maybe if I had somebody I talked to about my kids as a sort of constant, rather than keeping it to myself, then I wouldn't feel like I can't talk to anybody about that because nobody knows how I feel, because I kept so much of it to myself. So if you can find somebody that you can share bits of, you know, particular strength, like if it's work pressures, find somebody you used to work with who's a good friend, and you can say, oh, I'm having this problem, that problem. Blokes, we don't talk, but for me it was kind of like, I can't talk to anybody about how I'm feeling because nobody will understand, because I hadn't shared anything.
Right.
And then the other thing that I talked about at Girl Live is when you're in that kind of like turmoil, there's so much noise in your head, like, and I don't mean that in a sort of like, you know, Jesus is telling me to go and shoot a cop or some shit, you know. It's like, it's not voices in your head like that, not like.
It's just
this
salty.
episode is brought to you by that cunt that lied about us online. Not like her voices.
Right.
I'm sure I'm gaslighting or some shit, but I couldn't give a fuck.
You're not.
It's like my mind. You have internal chatter.
It's self-talk.
Yeah, self-talk. And there's so much of it that becomes this kind of like indecipherable, oh, I need to do that, and I've got to do this, and I've got to go there, and I've got to do this. If you actually take a second and breathe, even something as simple as slowing down the pace of your walking and breathing, if you're deliberate in your movements and you breathe, when you breathe, you empty your mind somewhat. Differing degrees, but somewhat. And in slowing down the pace of your walking, even just something as physical as that, it's a bit Tony Robbins, but some physical change, actually, I found when I came out of hospital after that episode, and I walked really slowly and I was really deliberate and breathe deeply while you're walking, that noise goes away. And I've tried to share stuff with people, not in a kind of like I don't ring my friends and say, oh, I've got this problem, that problem, whatever. But it's like, if I'm playing golf with Nick or something, it's like, oh, fuck, this is really hard, work's hard. So, like, Nick knows what we've been through because the little bits here and there, I'm not making a big deal of it, but, you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
Sharing stuff and talking about stuff and meditation and trying to be deliberate with your movements and trying to empty your mind a little through breath work and stuff like that is super powerful.
We're so caught up in the matrix, truly.
None of it fucking matters, does it?
It really doesn't. It actually doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
I don't know if that helps or not.
I know it'll help somebody, for a fact. And, the net of it was, the police came, and because who knows what would have happened, because when I messaged Dave back and I said the police are on their way, he got out of the bath. He doesn't remember anything after this, and
and I was on the bed.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd taken enough to be able to go to sleep,
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I don't know if anything I've said is actually that helpful other than,
It's
the
incredibly
cliche
helpful.
The cliche is talking to people, but I think it's also trying to get a sense of perspective.
It's when you hear that's why, like, in our at the level of press, radio, and films, we don't talk about blank blank. So I'll say 12-step recovery, but that's why you're in community. You hear other people talk and you're like, oh, wow, that puts my life into perspective. I don't have ELO. I forget the name of the, gosh, I'm so off my game. Again.
Hey, you're doing great.
Are you sure?
Yeah. You're doing great.
I love you. Ehlers, what have you. It's a syndrome where your joints.
Okay.
It was the girl that sent in some audio and I made a video over the top of it. And you hear and you're like, oh my gosh, I thought I was having a bad day. Or you watch something, some media from Iran and you're like, okay, I don't have the morality police up my ass because I don't have a hijab on, But
I tell you what, so I was obviously in the state system. Do you call it state system here?
Yeah, state hospital.
State hospital. I was in there, and I realised really fucking quickly how good I had it.
Yeah.
Because the way that this reminds me of what I actually want. One of the things I actually want to do and I'm not doing, but the way that it's hard for me to say because I'm old, but the old people, genuinely old people over 65, over retirement age, the way that they are neglected and neglected by society, not just by, I talk a lot about how much better the UK or Australia is than the US because you abandon your citizens to make their own way in life. But it's true in every country. This isn't about the state abandoning old people. It's society we abandon old people. So the people that were in there, the stories they had about how, when their wife had died or when their husband had died and the kids didn't, step up and they just ended up losing, that.
Oh, you were actually in a private facility.
Was I?
Yeah.
I wasn't to start with.
Not to start with.
That was true fucking one flew over the cuckoo's nest, that first
Yeah,
stuff. I sat in the corner and stayed away from all the people spitting at each other. And
yeah,
shit.
you almost got hauled off to a state hospital for 10 days.
Yeah, that wouldn't have gone well.
So to then imagine what the experience would be like at a state hospital, but still.
But the olds that were in there, they just had nothing. Like they, they were going to go out and be homeless from, once they got through the system, they're going to go out and be homeless and have no money and nowhere to go. And it's like, fuck, I thought I had problems.
Right. It's wild. Yeah. And the other thing is keeping in mind that I took away your crutch. You know, when we met, I was like, I can't be around alcohol. And, you know, you have that as a coping device, even though you're not an alcoholic. Because my underwear going up my patch.
Yeah, I have that.
Do you?
Yeah, but that I think it probably would have helped if I just had a drink or something. Because it's like I just had no outlet.
Yeah, no outlet. So the moral of the story is, you know, it's okay to not have an okay day. It's okay to not be okay, and to find somebody that you can link up with and share your experiences with. And, you know, that's a big part of why we created Grrrl and what we were aspiring to do with this next level project that just got shit on, which we'll talk about in another episode. But, you know, is building out an online community, because this is where magic happens, and this is how you empower people and change lives. You know, as we say in recovery, driving around a pier in my head by yourself is a really dangerous neighborhood. You don't want to drive around in there alone. That's why you talk, and then when it gets out of your head and out of your mouth, then you realize, you're like, oh my gosh, that's wild.
I think I don't want to keep going on, but it's kind of quite interesting thinking about it, because I've just tried to shut it out. But no two people in the places that I was in had the same story.
Yeah.
No two people, it would, you know, and the reason I bring that up is, like, you never know who's suffering, because where I was first and second, there's about 30 people in each, and you would never fucking be able to find a common thread to unite them. So it's like, if you think that you know somebody who's struggling, you probably don't. You probably don't know all of the people that are, because there was no kind of, oh, they're all like this, they're all suffering from this. Everybody's suffering, or everybody's reason for being in there, was different, and I don't think anybody could have picked it for any of them. So I think it's also for the if you're looking at it from sort of the outside in, it's just asking people to talk, you know, giving people the opportunity to talk, because we're all so fucking busy, you know. We've all got so much on our plates. I haven't got time to talk to her. I haven't got time to talk to him. I'm like,
right.
Oh, no, I'll ring him next week. And the reality is that there was people in there who were alcoholics who had, you know, fallen off the wagon. They saw their life going a particular way and, you know, spiraling down. You had old people who'd just been deserted by their kids. You had drug addicts who'd just taken the wrong thing and tried to kill themselves. All these people that were kind of like brought together were all different. All their reasons were different. And what we think of mental health is not the reality of mental health. We're all struggling.
Yeah.
And it's that, for me, it was the cumulative nature of things that, had I sat down, broken them apart, and talked to people, it would have been different. For other people, it's, you know, there were people who, there was an influencer in there, a female influencer in there, these early 20s, and she just hated her body. She hated how she looked, and she was in this cycle of self-abuse, because she wasn't what she thought she needed to be to get more gigs and, you know, get more brands and all that kind of shit. But it's like we have a sort of view that mental health is, you can tell someone who's a basket case, you know, that's a wrong word, but you can tell, right, if somebody's mentally ill. You can't. It's silent is the problem.
That's very valid. Not that you need me to validate shit, but it's absolutely accurate. I mean, I bang on about that a lot, being like, look at me, shredded, best shape of my life. Ooh, you're fit as a fiddle. It's like, yeah, meanwhile, I'm sitting here wanting to kill myself because I'm hooked on Oxycontin and can't get off of it, and it's $1 a milligram habit. I'm spending $80 a day, and fucking...
The worst was that lady's a black woman. She'd have been about 40. She's an alcoholic, and just having been in that cycle, she's like and she was the loveliest woman, but she was like just in this downward spiral of getting a job, fucking up, being drunk, losing a job, she kids, and she just kept fucking up, and she was just tired of fucking up.
Yep. It's a big part of it. And I'm like, how can they not have phone numbers to call and say, hey, you know, like back in the old days when Bill and Bob would go and 12-step people in mental asylums. I mean, maybe that place does have a list. I don't know, but I would have loved to gone down there and talk to her, you know, or what kind of resources are they giving to people?
They don't give people anything. I was just waiting while you were in the bathroom before we started, and I'm hoping I can pull this straight up, which I can't, obviously.
This episode is brought to you by Samsung Galaxy.
The broken Samsung S20 Galaxy. I'm going to approximate, but in 1955 there's 120 million. I don't know why this just came up in my Twitter feed just before we're about to talk about this, but 1955 there was 120 million people in America. There's now today 320 million, so it's more than doubled. In 1955 there were 750,000 people in mental asylums. Today there's 35,000. The mental health is not sexy. It's not a vote winner. It doesn't get the investment that it needs, and people are being left to fend for themselves. Exactly to your point about what resources people are being given. I got fucking nothing when I left. Nothing that I could use. There was lists of places to go if you were a teenager or shit like that, but it was no kind of like, here's a list of people you can talk to. Here's a group you can go. Like I thought maybe there'd be like a
support group,
or a little bit like AA or something. But there's nothing. And I gave my number to everybody that I met, but especially the old people. It's like, you can't fucking go out on the street. You've had a brilliant life, and your kids just ripped all your money off you. I don't let that happen, but there's no resources, and people are being. And this is true worldwide, is people are being taken out of whatever programs used to be funded and just left to fund. You see on the streets in Las Vegas every day. They've been, maybe 20 years ago, 50 years ago, there was a program for some of them. Now there's fucking nothing. And that's not I vibe against America, right? But it's like caring the community in the UK. It's like caring the community. What? Don't you just fucking stop funding the hospital? There's no care. You've just put them out into the community. Like the schizophrenics in the UK used to go into the mental health, the public mental health system. Now it's like, oh no, you'll be all right at home. We'll send somebody around once a year to make sure you're all right. Anyway.
Wow. Well. Interesting. What? I swear. Yeah. What do I'm like, what's next? What are we supposed to be doing, God? Like, holy shit. Is it selling leggings? Is it starting programs for people coming out of asylums and institutions that have tried to take their life? Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? I know what we're. Whatever.
Kortney, I know whatever, Olson. I hope that helps somebody somewhere. I don't know.
It absolutely will, and I'm super grateful that you shared that, and I commend you, and I love you at the bottom of my heart. And I'm looking forward to sharing more episodes with people and imparting our wisdom even on days when we don't feel up to our best.
Not imparting anything other than a punch to the face.
In it. All right.
Yeah.
Listen,
Brilliant.
Y'all. Brilliant. We're going to wrap this up. So we will see you back on the next episode. Thank you for joining us. And I have no call to action other than go buy some shit.